red building that was built as a fort. It was called St. Charles Fort by the Spanish in 1769. That same building served as a U.S. Mint between 1835 and 1909, and at one time it was the Jazz Museum. I'm not sure what they use it for today, but certainly those are three markets you can enjoy while you're in New Orleans, right here along the Mississippi River. So pointing out these live oak trees on the left-hand side of us. They were all planted here about 150 years ago. These live oak trees may grow about 600 years. They might live about 600 years. They're not native. They were planted here. They also grow in Virginia and Florida, but now they grow here in Louisiana. Palm trees are not native. They were all planted here also. You'll see a lot of different types of palm trees. Even up and down Canal Street, you'll see palm trees there. And whether they came from Brazil or Florida, I don't know where they came from, but there's different types. The only native palm tree that we have is called the dwarf palmetto. They live in the swamps alongside the bullet cypress tree, which is our state tree, the bullet cypress. Here's a large stand of live oak trees in Washington Park on the left-hand side of us. The neighborhood to the right is called the Marigny. On the right, it's named after Bernard Mandeville de Marigny, dates back to 1805. Further downriver is a neighborhood called Bywater. People lived along the river because it's always high ground. You know, the French Quarter, Bienville he knew what he was doing. You know, you're in the French Quarter, you're about 10 feet above sea level on natural silt sediment. Notice these homes on the right and to the left are elevated. See, there's different ways of elevating, and the reason why we do is because we get so much rainfall. We get almost 65 inches of rainfall a year, annually. You know, I remember May 8th, 1995, this dark cloud came over New Orleans, and in 18 hours we got 24 inches. So if we get 65 inches annually, what do you think that did to us in 18 hours? We flooded. Now, a lot of people talk about Hurricane Katrina. That was a major disaster 7 years ago, but now you get to see New Orleans 7 years after Hurricane Katrina. This area is still pretty much high ground. See, what happens is you need to understand how New Orleans is situated. Many people live on reclaimed swampland. We're surrounded by water. Geographically, we're 350 square miles. Of that 350 square miles, 180 square miles is dry land. Well, Hurricane Katrina flooded 80% of the 180 square miles. You know, we have the river on two sides of us. We have Lake Pontchartrain on the third side. We have 1,500 miles of underground and above ground canals. And of course we have lagoons and we have lakes, and that's why you hear the word bayou so much. Well, when you go to New Orleans, there's always water bayou. A bayou is actually backwater off of a larger body of water. That's what a bayou is. It's a natural body of water off of a larger body of water. So if you got the river on two sides and the lake on the third side, you're going to have a lot of bayous. And then we have three types of canals. We have sewerage canals, we have outflow drainage canals, and then we have industrial canals because we're a city of industry. But notice how we elevate. You know, we have what's called see the home on the left where that man's walking with the white shirt on? That's what they call an above ground basement home where the first floor is not living space. So that's a form of elevation. You walk up to the front door and you walk in your living room, you see. We can elevate like that. We have the pylon technology where we can pound down pylons. Pylons can be like this wood telephone pole. They can be concrete, they can be metal. And what we do is we pound the pylons down to the swamp below us, which makes a solid foundation. We can use brick, we can use cinder block, we can use concrete, or a combination. You know, you can build up the earth and you can use the pylons, build up the earth and use brick. There's all kinds of ways to do things. And again, we do this because we want to keep flooding down to a minimum. So again, as we look around throughout the city, you'll see, of course, different areas and different homes, how they're built, and they're quite unique. All right, this neighborhood here is called Treme. There's an HBO show called Treme. This is where it's filmed, and that was filmed after Hurricane Katrina 7 years ago. They're still filming that show. But his name, we call it, well, Claude Treme was a sugarcane planter, and that's who the area is named after, Claude Treme. All right, now we're on Claiborne Street. He was our first American governor 200 years ago, William C.C. Claiborne Street. You'll see another alley of oaks over here on the left-hand side. You might notice they don't have any Spanish moss on the branches. The moss was taken off the branches. People thought the moss might be dwarfing or stunting the tree's growth. But, you know, in movies you always see Spanish moss hanging down the live oak tree branches, you know. Maybe in front of a plantation, something like that. Well, Spanish moss is classified as an epiphyte. And what that means is it gets its nourishment from the air or the oxygen that you and I are breathing, only uses the trees for support. So yeah, Spanish moss does grow on the live oak tree naturally, and they also grow on the bald cypress tree. If you do one of our plantations tour, we take you out into the swamps and you'll see all the Spanish moss on the trees. This Interstate 10 freeway was built right here through New Orleans in the late 1960s. What would have been here before the freeway was more live oak trees that were cut down to accommodate the freeway, Interstate 10. It runs east and west right across America, from California to Florida. And in 1961, the rock and roll singer Fats Domino was making a lot of hits, singles, dancing, and another singer that made a big hit in 1961. That was about 4 years before the Beatles came here. The Beatles came to New Orleans, the rock and roll band the Beatles, in 1964. Fats Domino, he was born upriver in Vacherie, speaking French, and then learned English as a second language. But of course, we had another rock and roll singer called Ernie Cato. Ernie Cato came out with a song called Mother-in-Law. It was a big hit. Let me show you the former Ernie Cato Lounge. It's not open for business. They closed, but I heard that a musician named Kermit Ruffin is going to reopen this lounge in a few months. But Ernie Cato has passed on, same with his wife. But let me show you the historic, famous Ernie Cato Mother-in-Law Lounge. See where the Indians are on the left-hand side on that building? Yes. That's the former lounge. Mother-in-law. There you go. You all can Google it. All right, now let's go see some of these antebellum homes that were built by very wealthy French, Spanish, Creole, and free person colors such as Tommy Lafon. Now, our antebellum years were between 1812, the year we became a state, up until 1861, when the Civil War broke out. Antebellum means prior to the American Civil War here in the South. So these homes, like I'm going to show you, were built during that period of time, early 1800s, by wealthy French, Spanish, Creole, and free person colors such as Tommy Lafon. This is still the Tremé area. The Tremé we just left dated back to the 1770s. For example, look at the house on the right. They're fixing it up, renovating it. Nobody lives there. But that was built in 1859 by a very wealthy Creole aristocrat. His name was Dufour Baldwin. And it's another historic home. But notice these homes are very tall, long, narrow. They're large. They're close together. They're freestanding, alone. They're not attached like in the French Quarter. But you might notice how many of them don't have much, front lawns and gardens in the front. You'll see more of a curb appeal in front lawns. Even someone's roof is considered a curb appeal if you have a nice roof on your house. So I want you to notice the roofs. I want you to know how these homes are made and developed and built. It was trendy to start having really pretty front lawns as time went on. But I wanted to call that attention to you because when you're in the French Quarter, do y'all see any front lawns? See, that's the charm of the French Quarter we don't get to appreciate because people don't live on the streets in the French Quarter. They live on the back courtyards. They have patios and decking and verandas, and that's where the charm is we don't get to see. And here's a couple bed and breakfasts on the right-hand side of us, B&Bs. The Creole like to use a lead-based paint, I guess, to show off their wealth. It's much more expensive per gallon than the cheaper whitewash paint. See, whitewash paint may last 3 years. Had the whitewashed homes every 3 years. This lead-based paint lasted 10 years. See these French colonial homes on the left? Creole, very colorful. That was a lead-based paint. That was a sign of wealth. Now look at the statue on the right. That was made for the 1884 World's Fair. We also had a World's Fair in 1984. And the second home from the left, see where the French flag is? Home of the artist Edgar Degas. Lived there briefly in 1872, French Impressionist artist. Now there's a man, he's a retired airplane pilot that lives there now. He used to walk by this home on his way to school, in high school, and now he retired. He rebuilt that as it looked in 1872. Look at all these homes. These are single-family homes. Here's one of these schools named after John McDonough. on the left. Let me tell you the story about McDonough. McDonough, he was a Scot. He was born up in Baltimore, Maryland, educator, tutor, and lecturer. He wasn't making much of any money. He came down here as a teacher, you know. Back in those days, you had to have a passion to teach. It wasn't about money. And he came down here, he was concerned about the education of the youth in New Orleans. But while he was down here, McDonough had a hobby. He liked to buy and sell real estate. He started out very small, but then he got pretty good at that hobby, because I'll tell you what happened. Upon his death in 1850, he had never married. He never had any children to leave his fortune to, but he wrote out a will and testament to New Orleans, basically, as a city, and it basically said, when I die, sell all my property that I acquired in New Orleans, and less any liabilities. Whatever profit you get for it in New Orleans, you can send half the money up to Baltimore, where I was born. The other half that money New Orleans could keep. And the money that New Orleans received, we built 39 John McDonough schools. So when you see McDonough School, that's the story behind it. He actually lived across the river in a city called Gretna, and Gretna is the name of a city in Scotland. He was a Scot, remember? But he was born in Baltimore. All right, we're now in a neighborhood called Mid-City. We're no longer in the antebellum homes that were built in the early 1800s. These were built within the last 100 years. This is called Mid-City. You might see front lawns starting to develop, more landscaping, and the homes they take on a different form of architecture. We started in the French Quarter. We saw the Marigny, talked about the balconies, and talked about the galleries. But New Orleans is also America's #1 importer of coffee beans. Here on the left-hand side is Community Coffee. Some other coffee, they use a chicory, which is a root. We love our chicory coffee from Community. On the left, and then on the right, that big white home with the green trim and the red dual stairway. Okay, that home was built in 1904 at a cost of $16,000. Has an 86-foot long hallway, which is the longest residential hallway in the city of New Orleans. That's when a nickel was a nickel. If you look down this street, at the far end is a building with a red roof. Okay, that's a clubhouse 4-hour racetrack. That's the 3rd oldest public racetrack in America. And we have thoroughbred racing. It begins Thanksgiving Day, 12:30 post time. And of course, it's Thursday through Sundays. That's also where we have the Jazz Festival. Here's the Hare Krishna Temple on the left. Jazz Festival is the last week in April, the first weekend in May. Notice how the live oak trees, the branches make like a canopy over our streets. See, these trees really aren't known for their height, like maybe a California redwood would be. They're known for their long branches. And look on the branches. Can you see that green fern? Okay, it's called resurrection fern. Now what happens is, if it hasn't rained for a few days, it'll shrivel up and it'll turn brown, almost the color of the bark, so you really can't see it. But after it's rained a few days, it unshrivels and it turns green. So it's always going from brown to green, green to brown all year long, and they just call it resurrection fern. This is a restaurant, Italian food on the right, and next door the Edgar Degas Cafe on the right. Been there for 28 years. And that's French Creole cuisine. And then on the left you got the Pocket Park, and then on the right you got the market. Look all this, and then up ahead to the left, the supermarket. Been there since 1925. See, the locals, they support all this. People that live in this area, they support it. If you're looking for homemade Italian sausage or stuffed pork chops, look at here on the left. You'd have to go to Walmart. This is a local family-owned business. Been there 3 generations. Mexican food on the right. And then on the left, you got the pink house. That's called Cajun Cottage. Look on the left. See how the back roof slopes out? Okay, that's how the French Canadian built the home on the bayou. Here's a little small affordable home called a shotgun home. Look on the left. See, it's got the red shutters on the left. It's like a hallway with furniture. And you can build a shotgun home anywhere, Here's Mother Cabrini High School on the left. All girls uniform, 1959 high school. It was an orphanage since 1906 though. Mother Cabrini Orphanage, 1906. It's been a high school, 1959. On the left. All right, now we're going to pull up alongside one of our cemeteries. I like to share this and explain to people. I don't know if you do this back at home where you live. I know we have people from all over the world, and certainly some of you do. Certainly, of course, in New Orleans and travel around America, you won't see a whole bunch of this. But while you're here, we like to share with you why we do this. Certainly, the water table. This cemetery opened up in 1853. 1853. And at that time, this area would have been all swamp. And so, of course, you can't bury people 6 feet in the ground on a swamp. A swamp's all water, mud, and muck, right? But so above ground burial was, of course, necessary. Not just traditional, but necessary. So we do it today. We do have 42 above ground cemeteries, but I like to explain to people that we do have in-ground burial. Like I mentioned, the people lived along the edge of the river because you're on high ground, all formed by silt and sediment from the Mississippi River. See, in the last 5,000 years, downriver from Baton Rouge, at 70 miles from New Orleans, the river has changed courses about 7 different times, each time flowing in a different direction, depositing silt and sediment, forming all these high ridges. So we do have in-ground burial, just not right here because you're 2 feet below sea level on a swamp, okay? But cemeteries, as we were growing as a city, were always built away from the main population. If you want to start with cemetery number 1, it's on Basin Street, and mainly because that's all high ground right next to the French Quarter. That was 1789. That's where Marie Laveau's buried, the infamous Voodoo Queen. They filmed the movie Easy Rider years ago. That was 1789. So that should tell you from 1718 to 1789. 1789 would have been when the Spanish were governing us, but the French and Spanish, they did bury in ground. Then they started doing the above ground thing in 1789. And then, of course, our next one is on Claiborne Street, and this is number 3 in 1853. You see what I'm saying? So then during the 1900s, we became more populated, more cemeteries developed around our city, and we became more populated. But I wanted to get back to the specifics of a tomb. As you can see, they can be built out of granite, marble, stucco, brick, rock, or a combination. Anytime you see granite or marble, that should impress you. Somebody's got some money, to do that. Back in the old days, all we had was brick. We'd fire the put the brick, make the brick, and that's how we built. Stucco came later, and different forms of burying. But pretty much people build a tomb based on what you're going to do with it. Are you going to build a tomb for 1 person, 2 people, 3, 10 people? It's your own personal decision, right? You're going to have to make it for yourself, or someone's going to have to make it for you, for your burial arrangements, if you will. So whether you want to get cremated, whether you want to be wrapped in a shroud, whether you want to be placed in a body bag, whether you want to be put in a coffin, that's your personal choice, not mine. You see what I'm saying? So my point is, if you build a tomb like this, it could be a resting place for a lot of people if everybody's cremated. And people always say, well, how many people can you put inside here? Well, it depends what you're going to do. You see what I'm saying? I mean, if you're going to use a casket, maybe 1 or 2 people, and that's it. You see what I'm saying? And if you want to put 10 people in one tomb, that'd be like a mausoleum. A mausoleum is a building with a lot of vaults, and you would buy a vault as a resting place. This cemetery does have mausoleums. They're like little buildings with like 15 or 25 vaults. That's a mausoleum. These are just considered tombs. They're more personal. It's got your name on it. So people walk by and say, oh, that's so-and-so, and you wonder who that person was, But they were somebody that could afford a tomb in this cemetery. I would say the value of a tomb here is probably around $60,000. But hold on, like I said, we have neighborhoods, low income, you have middle class, you have upper middle class, and affluent neighborhoods. Well, it kind of everything goes hand in glove. You see what I'm saying? So this cemetery here probably represents people. Remember the antebellum homes I showed you? And maybe this